Welcome to today's webinar, a closer look at HP Service Manager 9.31. Next slide, please. Today's webinar is brought to you by Vivit's HP Service Management SIG. My name is Mary Kay Peterson, and I'll be your moderator today. Today's session will run for about 45 minutes, and we'll have Q&A at the end. Next slide. For those of you in the EMEA area or who have the good fortune to be attending HP Discover in Frankfurt, I wanted to let you know about some Vivit events at that conference. There is a member discount if you have not signed up yet. If you are a Vivit member, you can get a discount to the conference. There is free advanced training. Someone graciously is sponsoring ITIL and Beyond training on Monday, December 3rd. You can add this course to HP Discover account, or you can do it directly with Vivit. There's also Vivit roundtables on ITSM, Service Manager, and Service Anywhere, led by Chuck Darst. And you can reserve your seat directly with Vivit for those roundtables. Next slide. If you go to the Vivit website and you see in the upper left HP Discover 2012, that's where you would go to sign yourself up. Next slide. Today's speakers are Michael Pott, who is Product Marketing Manager at HP Software, Jacques Canad, Product Line Director for HP Service Manager, and Pat DeMartine, who is the Director of ITSM Products. Welcome, gentlemen. Next slide. For housekeeping purposes, we do record these sessions, and they will be available to all members of Vivit. Becoming a member of Vivit is free, and the session will be posted on the website within the next couple of days. There is a question pane. Actually, if we jump to the next slide, we can take a look at that, where you can type your questions in. At the end of the session, I will be asking the questions of our speakers, and we'll reserve the last 15 minutes for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to HP.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, welcome, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Michael Pott, and I'm glad to present to you today here about Service Manager 9.31. The agenda we have today is I'm going to provide a quick overview on HP Service Anywhere to put the whole IT service management solution into perspective. Then I hand over to one of my colleagues for taking a closer look on Service Manager 9.31 as part of a follow-up of the October webinar, which had a similar content, but there was great demand to have this webinar again and also have a more in-depth demo, which we will go into after this short introductory session and then close with a final Q&A. Having that said, when talking about HP IT Service Management and HP Service Manager 9.31, we also need to look at software as a service. HP helps IT sleep better at night, as you can see here, by bringing together the best of both worlds, software as a service and HP IT Service Management. This means, for example, no CAPEX and no infrastructure to care about, while enabling you to deliver the IT services and support that your business and customers require, all quickly, efficiently, and simply. So before going into HP Service Manager 9.31 details, let me provide a quick overview of HP Service Anywhere and what it is, if you have not already heard about it. And here's the story. On October 22nd this year, so just like 2 weeks ago, there was an important milestone for HP, our customers, you, and our partners. We announced HP Service Anywhere, our new native service desk solution, as you can read here. And what is it? It takes the process designer, for example, the process designer concept that was introduced in HP Service Manager 9.3 and extend it to all processes provided and also over forms, tables, and business rules. The net result is a complete set of graphical codeless configuration tools that isolate user tailoring from HP code. This enables, and this is another of the bullet points on the slide here, this enables what we call seamless automated upgrades. I come back to that a little bit more in a second. Other capabilities are a simplified Web 2.0 user interface that includes social collaborations for agent and operators. This is what you see behind the social IT service desk here. And further, a variety of native and web service-based integration capabilities are provided, also including, by the way, an integration with HP Universal CMDB and Discovery. And last but not least, very important, as I think, with HP you can count on a trusted and complete ecosystem for software as a service, ranging from the infrastructure over the software to professional support and world-class services. What you see here is some more details, or the next level of details in terms of key features for the first release. And while I already have highlighted a couple of things before, like the simple and powerful tailoring, out-of-the-box simplified processes, this basically gives you an idea of what this first release of HP Service Anywhere comes with: a service desk, incident, problem change, configuration management, and a common workflow, along with the social service desk capabilities or social collaboration capabilities and a self-service portal for self-service ticketing. Two more important things to keep in mind are, number one, that's what you see among the things on the right-hand slide here, is the multiple automatic updates per year. Again, I really want to stress this because of this, codeless configuration, keeping customer configurations untouched. That is very important, because if you're going to change your processes to your specific needs, you don't want to start from scratch, with each and every upgrade that you get. And number two is the 99.9 availability guarantee. This sounds like, if you look at whatever other vendors at the market who might have things like 99.8 or whatsoever, that it's not a big deal, but it is. You can do the math if you do it correctly. I hope I did it. 0.1% really translates into a little bit more than 8 hours per year. So if you just have 99.8, it's almost a whole day, as you can imagine. So you really also want to look at that. So having that said, as this is only an overview today here in this webinar, and we are going more talk about Service Manager 9.3.1 in a minute or two, I at least want to point you to the right direction here on where you can get more information. Number one, www.serviceanywhere.com. This is a screenshot of the page here. That is, your landing page where you may want to go, or where you want to go, I'm sure, to get some more information like data sheets, white papers, and what you have. And the big blue arrow here is number two. If you want to register for a trial, for a sandbox trial, you can also do that via the page here. We have announced 2 weeks ago we will go to the public. It will be released around mid of November, so that's like a week or two from now. So please register here if you want to get your hands on HP Service Anywhere. Number three, very important, if you really want to have a deep dive from someone presenting from HP, I think it's Chuck Darst, if I remember right, you also may want to check the December 12th Vivid webinar, which will be dedicated to HP Service Anywhere. And number four, always for the latest, greatest news, information that you may want to check is the ITSM blog at hp.com/go/ITSM blog. And for sure, you also can follow us on Twitter at HPITSM, which also points back again to the blog and what you have. So with that, let me move to the next slide. It's a summary, and again, I don't want to bore you with telling you the story again here, so just a few key takeaways here. HP Service Anywhere, HP's new native SaaS service desk, provides a complete service management solution, very important, going far beyond the plain tool, including technologies, services, consulting, education, what you have. It enables you to implement in weeks, not in months, providing real quick time to value. And finally, it is intuitive to use and minimizes total cost of operations. And with that, I want to thank you for now at least, and hand you over to my colleague Jacques Conan, who will talk about HP Service Manager 9.3.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And so it's exciting to hear to to see this new product coming to market, Service Anywhere. Having said that, the topic of this webinar is Service Manager 931. So before I go to 931, let me try to put in perspective these two products because, and I expect this could be some of the topics of the Q&A at the end. There is a number of things in common between Service Anywhere and Service Manager, and it's made on purpose so that Service Manager can, customers like you in this call most likely, can continue to upgrade to the latest and greatest version of Service Manager, while at the same time going in the direction of where Service Anywhere is going. And so there are two key points for that direction, and I'll touch one of them. One is Process Designer. That was a major new development of Service Manager 930. And the other one is the social component that Michael touched upon, which is the built-in collaboration across an increasing number of processes. And so you'll hear that actually this is one of the points of 931. So the thing that we always say to Service Manager 9 customer, or Service Manager customer in general, whether it's 7, 9.2, and 9.3, is that there is no, you don't have to be scared about Service Anywhere. Service Anywhere is something compelling that is progressing. You can see the first version, but for those of you who have the breadth of all the ITL processes deployed on Service Manager, there's still something coming on Service Manager, and we're proud to announce 931 today. We're already working on the next version after 931, and this is not the topic of today's call, but I'm happy to have a follow-up session on that one, and so we continue to invest substantially and heavily on Service Manager. This is really two parallel tracks, and at some point we'll be happy to talk about the conversion. So having said that, let me go into the content of 931 quickly, as we want to reserve the heart of the presentation for the demo. And I'll go quickly through the four main elements of Service Manager 931. And so Michael, next slide, please. The first one is, which is, let's say, the most important part of Service Manager 931, is that we rewrote completely the Service Portal, also known as SRC, Service Request Catalog. What we did is we rewrote it because we wanted to have a much bigger, much greater ability to have it customized. And doing that, we also added a lot of functionality. So Self-Service Portal, and you'll see that in the demonstration, there's two improvements that we brought. One is, functionally speaking, we added a lot of functionality. So I'm putting here the global search. So now you can, the user can search and get results across all the service offering, and also the knowledge. There is the ability to manage subscriptions, which was missing previously. There's a much broader and generic management of approvals across all the different types of requests. And we've improved the mechanism around the shopping cart. So functionally, that bridges the gap that we had in the previous version of SRC in Service Manager 930. So that's one, which is the functional aspect. The second one is around the customization aspect. So customization aspect is something that was lacking in 930, and actually that's the reason why we decided to rewrite SRC almost completely for its front end, so that we could have some much more advanced customization. So we changed the default layout. We think, having worked with some of you in design partnership, that it's much better now. We have now the ability to support custom fields that was missing previously. We can integrate third-party in the form of launches, and probably more important, we have a lot of abilities in terms of customizing the layout, the look and feel, the header, the footer, the logo, the font, the size, the colors. So everything that makes it possible for an organization to tailor the self-service portal so that it's in line with the company standard image, and we'll be able to show some interesting mock-ups to illustrate that. So that's the first thing, and it's probably, in terms of size of the change in Service Management 930, that's probably the most important part. Next slide, please. Michael, if you could. Yeah, thank you. So the second part, and it's one of the important directions of both Service Manager and Service Anywhere, by the way, is the fact that we're building increasingly collaboration in all the processes that we have in Service Manager. So we started about 6 months ago, asynchronously after Service Manager 930, with collaboration in the context of incident and interaction. And what we delivered in 931 is adding the ability to have collaboration in the context of change. So we continue to have the same thing, which is all the interesting feature, which is when you open a change or an incident and you want to open a collaboration with someone in the service desk, the system will propose some suggested participants based on the service ownership, the CI ownership, the assignment groups. We also have the gateway, the ability to connect with someone outside of Service Manager through the gateway to now Link, which is the successor of Office Communicator, so we support both versions. So that's what we brought in this version of Service Manager 931 in terms of extended collaboration. Next slide. The other thing is we've got an increasing number of customers, and we've pushed this direction for quite some time now, that now make, that leverage the CMDB, so UCMDB, together with Service Manager. And we've done a lot of improvements previously to integrate much better Service Manager and Universal CMDB. We delivered about 6 months ago a dedicated integration pack that is associated with the latest versions of UCMDB, so UCMDB 905 and UCMDB 10 that was delivered recently, so that we have a much better mapping of CI types and subtypes, that we have a much more reliable population and exchange between the UCMDB and Service Manager. And what we added in this version of Service Manager 931 is that we took advantage of something that has been introduced recently in UCMDB that is really exciting, and I would definitely encourage you to have a look, which is the UCMDB browser. UCMDB had a reputation of being extremely technical and reserved for very advanced users, so typically a handful of users, potentially in a very large organization. And what we wanted to do is bring the power of the UCMDB to a much broader category of users. And this is exactly what UCMDB does through the use of facets. So there are facets for different aspects of a CI. So there is, for example, there is an incident facet, so you can look at what are the incidents associated with CI. There are change facets, there are asset facets. And what we have done now in 931 is link this UCMDB browser from the CI in Service Manager. So it's very easy now to launch the browser from when you look at the CI in Service Manager, and from the browser then you can look at different facets of the CI. So very powerful way of having a lot more information around the CI. Next slide, please. And so lastly, I'd like to conclude with one thing, which is CLIP, so closed loop incident process, which is really the ability to automatically link the infrastructure monitoring, so the ability to filter and identify the root cause of a series or storm of events, and create automatically an incident in Service Manager that is then tracked, and once closed, it acknowledges back the root incident in the BSM platform, so in Operations Manager OMI. And so we have, so that's in essence what is the CLIP solution, this integration between BSM and Service Manager using CMS in the middle. What was missing until today is the ability to filter this automatic creation of incidents from events during the period where there is a planned downtime. And typically during planned downtime, this is when potentially there could be storms of events because there's a lot of things that are detected, but because it's planned downtime, it's actually irrelevant. So the last thing you want to do is generate automatically storms of incidents on those events that are not relevant because of planned downtime. So what we've added in that version of Service Manager 931 in relationship with the BSM platform is the ability to define this planned outage window, and during those windows, filter out the events coming from the BSM platform into Service Manager. And so that's what we added in Service Manager 931. Next slide, Michael. So in summary, in Service Manager 931, and you'll see that in a lot more detail in the demo, we've got the four main functions that have been added. First of all, a completely new self-service portal, adding a number of functional characteristics such as management of subscriptions, approvals, knowledge search, and a lot more customization capability. Then we have extended the in-context collaboration to change, where it was previously only available in incident, and also we're extending that to integrate with Microsoft Lync as opposed to Office Communicator, the previous version. In the area of Service Manager UCMDB, we've continued to enhance integration between those two products, and in particular integrated the UCMDB browser. And then lastly, we added the planned downtime management in this event-to-fix integration that we call CLIP. And that is now the time for me to hand over to Pat for a demo.
Okay, thank you, Jacques. I'm going to go ahead and share, please. See how this works. Okay. Jacques, can you see my my screen?
Yes, I can.
Good.
Excellent. Well, good morning, good afternoon for all of you that are attending. Thank you for joining us. I'm the third pillar or third leg in today's presentation, and what we'll do is we'll go over the new service portal that was released in 931 that Jacques so eloquently described. We'll then move over into collaboration and show you how that works. Unfortunately, I did have to, in order to make this work, I did have to disobey the rules of not having chat open, and you'll see why. And then what we'll do is we'll go over a little bit more detail in the UCMDB integration browser, and then just a tad more detail on what Jacques provided with regard to the great integration that we have with the outage information going back and forth from BSM, from Service Manager. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're looking at right here the new HP service portal that just recently released with Service Manager 931. And as you can see, it visually looks much better, much more stunning. And a couple of things that you'll note right off the bat. So you'll see up here we have these quick launch icons. They allow you to get various information. I will warn you, this is a QA system, so when we take a look at this video, apparently somebody met with Kim Kardashian, so you can see you can embed your own videos. I don't think you would do that in your own HP portals, but we could certainly play that. So it really shows you that you can bring things in context of the interface. We can go ahead and search the web for my great colleague, Jacques Kanan. And it just shows you that it's a very flexible interface that you can not only put icons, but you can link to different things. Here we have some wonderful pictures of them. I'm hurt, Jacques, that Chuck and JMB show up under images for you, and I don't. And what it really does is provides a great interface for you to link out to various things. So what would we use this for? We would use this for bringing up an HTML interface, much like what we saw with the video, in context of taking a look at the hot issues that are facing IT today, maybe some hot news. And for those of you that have integrated with our great partner BombGar for support chat and remote control functionality, you'll see that we have a link out to that. Actually, if I were to click that, it'll actually download the BombGar package that we've set up automatically. So there's some out-of-the-box integrations there. Let's go ahead and turn our attention to the panels here that we have within the service portal. The first one is with the approvals. Now, we had this in the last version, but what's really changed is we've been able to take what we had before, which was essentially the ability to approve service catalog requests, and be able to extend it across not just the catalog request, but change as well as the request management. You'll see everything in here we have is for request management. And what's really great about this is that there's a set of users that do not access Service Manager, right? Typically the manager folks that have all of the power in the universe to approve and deny requests, whether they be service catalog changes or in this case, request management, request fulfillment requests. And what we can do is we can actually, just from a single click, and you'll notice as I go through this interface, what we've really strived is to take all of the clicks out as humanly possible. It's just, you get there, you can click, and you're done, right? So really removing the number of clicks. So I could go in here and just approve or deny any of these requests. I can actually click on an individual request to get a lot more information. Oh, this is a bundle. I can see exactly what's in the bundle, and then I can go ahead and approve and deny it. And I can either go back to the dashboard, or I could actually hit the back button if I wanted to. So actually quite incredibly powerful feature with the ability to essentially just say, approvers, here's your one-stop shop. It's also your one-stop shop for all of your other IT needs as well. With regard to requests, what we've done is we've really centralized to make it so that we see not only the service request but the support request from a single panel. And so here we can see the one open request here. So I have a test. I can see what the status is of it. I can add a new comment. I'm still testing. And I can post that so that the folks on the help desk can see it without ever having to call them. And you can see the history of what's been going on in terms of the communication back and forth and the ticket itself. I can actually close the ticket from here saying, you know what, I had a blue screen, but it must have been an off day for my PC. I'm not seeing that anymore. Or we could update the ticket as well. Okay, let's go ahead and go back to the dashboard. Going back, we see another panel here with regard to your subscriptions, right? So what we've been able to do, and this has always been in the background, and the folks that have used ESS in the past, end user self-support, the old dynamic, so more dynamic, but not, it's a dynamic HTML, but not HTML5, with regard to the ability to actually see what subscriptions that folks have that were either subscribed to them, for them on their behalf by the department. In this case, we don't have any, or that they have subscribed to from this particular interface. And what you're able to see is you're able to then look at all of the ones that are requested. We don't have any at this point active, canceled, in the process of cancellation, being canceled, or those that are denied. And here we can go in. I can't remember which one's this one isn't very interesting. You can see that, in fact, that it's an active subscription. I'm hoping that your SLA definitions are a lot more interesting than just Platinum Service, and you can actually see when it was subscribed, what happened, was it increased, was it decreased, was the SLA increased, right? What's the associated request in order to be able to order this? And then they do have the ability to unsubscribe to this particular service. You know, where we're headed to with regard to this particular feature is that this is a great jumping off point for folks, right? So if I have a cell phone that I accidentally dropped in the sink, I would see that it would be right here in this list. You know, what we were hoping to do in this release that didn't quite make it in terms of the stories was to be able to show the status, like for instance email. We could show the status of the email service, and then the ability to then eventually actually launch out to get support and knowledge from this particular interface, because typically I'm only going to want to, if I have a problem, it's going to be something that I'm subscribed to, and so we want to make this an incredibly useful place. But today it's great because you can actually see what you've subscribed to. You can see the associated SLA, and you can then unsubscribe from services that you're no longer interested in having from IT. Okay, so let's go into the juicy part. Let's go ahead and search for phones. And what we see here is a couple of things. One, we see that all of the service catalog requests, we still have the service catalog there, but the search screen became a lot more useful with this new version. We can see all of the things that are related to phones with regard to our service requests. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see that we also brought up knowledge as well as support aspects as well. So let's say I did drop my phone in the sink. I can go ahead and report a phone problem here. And I can go ahead and it gives me the details of that, and I can go ahead and request that. And I can go through that process. Or, let me just go back to phones real quick. Or I can actually, if I did phones. If I can go ahead and rotate that view around, so I can see, oh, let's see the detail of the support for the phone request, or I could take a look at the knowledge, right? And I can go look at the phone troubleshooting knowledge article, you know, especially since it's now sparking and overheating since I dropped it into the sink. And if that didn't work, I could go ahead and report that phone problem. And what you'll notice is that instead of things coming in from the right-hand side and sliding in, we've actually made better use of the real estate. And so we'll give the request name that is meaningful. Help me fix my sparking phone. I dropped it in the sink. And then we go ahead and hit next, and what you'll see is only those items that are required. Obviously, the phone number of the phone, 970-555-444, and then we can add in location, and we'll go ahead and I'll say that I'm in North America. Next. Contact information that automatically knows who I am. It automatically knows what my contact method is. And I'm ready to go ahead and submit that service request. And then we'll go ahead and see that status with our old status page here. So if I were to go back to the dashboard, we'll see that we have one more open in this particular list. So really, really exciting what we've been able to do, what the team's been able to pull off with regard to this. It's a major step forward. It really makes the service portal and service manager really, really viable as an enterprise-wide catalog. Now, the one thing that we didn't talk about that's a little harder to show that I'll show you a screenshot of is what you can do. So Jacques talked about how you can really change the look and feel of it. And we did this for one of our customers, and we've hidden the names as much as we can, but I'm sure a lot of folks will guess who this is. And what we were able to do is you're able to change the font, you're able to change the backgrounds, you're able to change what panels show up, don't show up, so you're not seeing bundles and hot items as an example. You're able to change what are these quick links are there. So a really, really customized environment so that you can match your company's internet experience. Okay, well, hopefully that tour was sufficient for Service Portal. I'll go ahead and get moving on into collaboration. So what you'll see here is I've got Service Manager up and running, 931. I'm actually within a change that I need to save because I changed the description. Oh, there we go, update, good enough. And then so with regard to, we've got this change that we're going to go ahead and update bring up a new database SQL instance. And so I want to talk to my good friend. I've logged into Zhenjiang. Let's not tell him that I did that. And I'll open it. You'll see why I did that. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually invite a participant here. And so these are the things that have changed. It's interesting that Zen is actually still online. Hopefully he doesn't see these messages. So the first thing that you'll see is that based upon this ticket and the assignment groups and the initiator and the affected services and the change coordinator, you can actually see that there are some suggested participants, right, that we would want to do. And I can go ahead and actually move over entire groups of folks if I wanted to. And we'll get that. You can see that that Sydney is not online. Or what we can do is we can actually choose somebody that is not from the suggested participants. We'll go ahead and suggest me, and this is why I chose Jen to be able to do this. And you can see that it's actually picking me up from the known database. You can see that I'm busy. And you can see that immediately I was added, and all of a sudden I'm starting to get messages. So we'll go ahead and close this and say, hey, Pat, what is going on with this change? I thought it was urgent. And then we can go ahead and post. And we heard a little ping because I'm getting my Microsoft link. And you can see all of a sudden we are having a wonderful discussion about the creating of the database instance, which is in fact the title of this particular request. And we can have this conversation. So this goes into what Jacques was talking about earlier. If it can't find you, so the great thing that we saw is that it can actually detect what the status is. Either they're in Service Manager or they're in Microsoft Link, for example. And if they're not, what it'll do is it'll send an email message. You'll get a link to this particular ticket with this conversation in context. So not only does it help you find the experts and be able to show you if they're really available right then for you to be able to communicate with, but then it also, finds them outside of the product as well. And so I know, but I am really busy. I'll go ahead and hit that. And you can see how it updated the ticket. So obviously this is why I needed to log into Zhenjiang so I could talk to myself. I didn't know I needed to do that. I can do that sometimes without even logging into Zhenjiang. So with regard to this feature, it's really, really important, and it's great that we extended it to change. And the rationale was, and I always pitched, and Jacques can tell you, I probably bored him tears with how many times I told them that it was really important that we did this for change. And the rationale for this is it's great when we're trying to get the ticket, the RFC through the process, right, and making sure that we can get it done in a very efficient way, and the change coordinator talking with the change implementers and the change managers. That's great. What's really important is actually when we get into change execution. And so most people do utilize an instant messaging tool to be able to work through the entire change execution process. So for instance, with this particular change, we're going to bring up a new database instance. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring the machine up live. We're going to patch it up. We'll install the database. We'll ensure that it's working. And if any of those steps along the way fail, right, we have a rollback procedure. And so if a change went through well, great. We'd love to learn from it. But if a change didn't go well, we'd like to have all of that information so that when we do our retrospective analysis, or we come back and examine the change in a much more thorough way, we have the ability to understand why didn't that change go well, what do we need to do for bringing databases up in the future so that we can make it go a lot more smoother. Unfortunately, in the past, a lot of that data was just gone, right, because it would have been in a chat window, they close it, and poof, all that great information's gone. And now you have that ability to retain that within the ticket, or in perpetuity until actually that ticket's archived. And that conversation would be, you'd have to archive that, which is held in a separate database as well. But the ability to have this linked in perpetuity with this particular ticket is a very strong one. In 930, we released content for this to be with incidents interesting, but change is also really, really instrumental for collaboration. Okay, now with that, I will go to go back to my little PowerPoint slide. So the Service Manager UCMDB integration, which was released as content, we've actually added it into the mainstream product. A couple of great things that occurred there. So we have the enriched CI relationship and CI relationship mapping. So it really harmonized the whole link between UCMDB and Service Manager, making it a lot easier for that integration to just go in within minutes. And the people that we've heard from that have actually installed this have said that this is one of the best integrations that they've had for HP, and that we should leverage what we learned with this with the rest of the integrations in the portfolio. With regard to the population of UCMDB with Service Manager data, you saw those little things come into UCMDB. Really, this is a very, very important, right? Because there's a lot of non-discoverable CIs that we put within Service Manager, and there are a lot of folks, a lot of companies that like describing the logical layer, the service layer within Service Manager, and they want that to propagate down into UCMDB, where they're connecting it to the logical layer, which we pull, or the discovered layer, the physical layer that we've imported into Service Manager. It's just easier to do. Jacques talked about how there are a few specialists that can go into UCMDB and play around with that tuple interface to pull the logical layer in. A lot more people are more familiar and are able to do that within Service Manager. We now allow you to do either. With regard to multi-threaded synchronization, when there were major events, so for instance, when you patched Windows systems and you had thousands or tens of thousands or hundred thousands of devices that impacted, we'd see a gigantic discovery bubble, right? So that this data the core data needed to be replicated up back into Service Manager. What it'll do is it'll spawn multiple threads to be able to keep up with that load, and then come back and kill those threads as they're not needed. So it's able to keep up with the load. And then we have this notion of improved error handling. So before, when it would run into a weird discovered CI and it didn't quite fit through the norms of what we're looking for, it would actually take down the entire process. Now it just puts it to the side. There's an error alert, and then it's stored to say this particular CI was not replicated accordingly, and it just keeps on chugging. So really robust, really scalable, really performant. So we're really excited about this particular integration, and that was now part of the mainstream product. Jacques talked about the UCMDB browser, and the UCMDB browser is great, and I know Jacques was excited, and there's a reason for that. So you're able to, if we were looking at this particular CI, and the CI is the Oracle device here that we see, and we can see the entire navigation path and how we got to that. Of course, since we contextually cross-launch this from Service Manager, that you'll get this in context. You wouldn't have navigated it, but this is what we would have seen in terms of the services that come up that it supplies, if you will, that it's a part of. We can see what the environment and properties of this. We can see actually what incidents, because we're dynamically federating that information with the UCMDB, so we can see what the incidents are that are associated with this. And actually click on them, believe it or not. We can see monitoring. So if we've got BSM tied into this environment, we'll actually see the performance and availability information as well. We actually see what kind of change requests that are related to it, as well as if it's what the impact is based upon where it is in the environment, as well as the policy. Is it's in compliance with configuration policy. So we've established a policy that all Oracle servers must look like X. You can see that it's only 33% satisfied with the criteria that we've established. So a really, really powerful tool. It really does take, like Jacques talked about, the power of the UCMDB and puts it into the hands of so many more people that can leverage the power of what it provides, which you can see right here from this quick screenshot that I took. See here, what time are we dealing with here? Oh, let me go through this really quickly. So the integrated downtime management is great, and Jacques actually had a more interesting flow, and I just wanted to talk about this really quickly. So you know, the big problems are with between operations and the help desk, and Jacques talked about it. One, outages are not shared with the help desk, so those folks have no clue what's going on. They just write down the ticket, when it would be a lot better for known downtimes to be actually synchronized into Service Manager. How that works is that we actually create known errors of those particular outage points, so that when people call into the help desk, they're able to say, oh, well, that's during a normal outage time. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. This is scheduled at this time. You can see that schedule here, and go ahead and close the ticket at that point. The other side of the dimension is that when we are actually making changes both inside and outside known outage windows, like Jacques said, we want to suppress the outage messages that are going to come from our monitoring environment in the events. We want to suppress those as well. And so what we've done is that when we've set up a change and we have an execution window, it actually shares that with the BSM tools, and it will actually suppress dynamically that outage window, whether it's inside or outside, once it's approved, once that's changed is approved. And let's say I had it for an hour and it actually only took me 15 minutes. Well, once I update that ticket, and it depends on how often you're synchronizing, let's say 5 minutes, the window will then automatically shrink, and it'll turn back on monitoring, so that you don't detrimentally affect your SLAs, because obviously doing a change outside of the change window would hurt necessarily your SLA window, and being able to pull that in and tighten it up is great, especially when you're able to do that just naturally. So the tools are really more seamlessly integrated. This is a really, really exciting integration that have been asked for by a lot of customers, especially the ones that have both HP solutions for our monitoring and event correlation and obviously Service Manager. The last thing that I will share with you is if you like to hear the dulcet tones of my voice, this overview is actually a little bit higher level overview is actually given in a video that you can download. You can actually watch yourself or share it with your colleagues, and here it is. It's in this particular URL as we see here. And you can see the overview of 931, and it runs in about 5 minutes, so obviously not as much detail as what's given here. So I will go ahead and turn it over for questions.
Well, great. I can say personally that I'm now convinced that I want to upgrade to 931, especially the bit about alerts is really nice. So let's get to our questions. We've got quite a number of questions. We've got about 15 minutes here to cover. Whatever we cannot answer during this session, HP makes a commitment to answer the questions, and we'll post them on the Vivid site. The first one, the self-service portal written from is the self-service portal written from 930 or from an earlier version of Service Manager? I think they're looking at the code base that you used.
Oh, okay. So it's a new code base, actually. So this is Jacques. It's a new code base that we took for Service Manager 931. So the component, as I hinted, is called SRC, and we have an internal numbering scheme for SRC, which is a little bit hidden, but it's a new version of SRC. And it's a completely different code base. As I mentioned in my introduction, we rewrote completely, almost completely, SRC. And it only works with 931, so there's been some API changes to the SM server. So that means that there's a one-to-one relationship between that version of SRC and the version of SM 931. So if the question is, can we run that version of with 921, for example, the answer is no, and with 930, the answer is also no. By the way, one thing I did not mention, but you probably heard that in the previous webinar, is that 931 is technically a patch version of 930. So that means that going forward, 930 will not be patched any longer. It will be 931, patch 1, patch 2, patch 3. That technically are actually patches of 930. And then, so that's for everything in Service Manager except for SRC that is now technically replaced with the new SRC. So
Okay.
931, a new SRC plus a patch 6, I believe, or 7 of 930. And then we continue the series of patch by restarting on patch 1, 2, 3 on 931.
Okay. So some of us don't own SRC, although you've are certainly making me think about wanting to acquire it. What happens to the ESS client at 931? Does it still exist? What does it look like?
Yeah, so ESS continues to exist, continues to be maintained. We have no plan to discontinue it. But as you can see, we put the focus on SRC in terms of enhancement. But we continue to support ESS. I don't have any specific plan in terms of feature enhancement for ESS, but there's definitely no plan to discontinue it. By the way, you say we don't own SRC. Just to be clear, SRC is free of charge. You know, there's no additional license to own SRC. It is, if you have access to ESS, every feature you have in ESS can be made available through SRC without any additional license.
Okay. And so customizing SRC, I think the portal that you presented on page 16, are any other tools required to do the tailoring, or really just the Service Manager product? You provide means to do the tailoring.
So no, I think there's no additional tool required. It's pretty simple. So you would obviously need to import some graphics if you want to put a backdrop, like the picture of a cereal breakfast cereal that we put. Of course, you know, we don't include Photoshop in Service Manager, but you know, other than that, no, there's no necessary tool.
Okay, good. Some people use Service Manager for several companies. Is it possible to customize the catalog's look and feel for each company, or will it have to be the same for every company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what happens, so in one SRC instance, you can only have one look and feel. Now, the way it is done technically, SRC is a separate server, so a separate binary instance. So in fact, what can be done is to have one SRC binary per customer. That would give you the possibility to customize that by client. But if the question is, do we have a multi-tenant SRC that we can customize by tenant, the answer is no, but there are workarounds to do that.
Okay. Does the catalog accept custom fields added to the database in the layout as well as the tailoring?
Yes, that's actually one of the features of Service Manager 931, unlike the previous version 930 that did not support custom fields either in the catalog or in the layout. So now you have this possibility, yes.
Okay. The next question is with regard to upgrades. I think you've answered it, but let's just make sure. What is the correct procedure to install SM931? I have in mind HTML mail, UCMDB integration. Is it application patch, process designer? If I install the latest patches, do I get all the updates that have been done in previous versions? Will upgrade to newer version affect what's already tailored in Service Manager? That's a long question.
Yeah. So the patch, and maybe it requires a separate follow-up question, because I don't want to give too short answer on one specific case. But the reason why we went to 931 is precisely to make the update process very smooth, very light. We didn't want to go through even though we made a lot of effort to improve the upgrades on 930, there is still a certain upgrade that customers have to go through between 920 or 930 or 7.5 to 930. That is not what we're talking about here. You apply the 930, which is technically like a patch, except for SRC, which is a replacement, but for the rest of SM, it's a patch. So that you don't go through this traditional upgrade process of doing the reconciliation of the conflict resolution and all that. This is a very light one. As I mentioned, technically, 931 outside of SRC is 930 patch 7.
Okay. In the demo of SRC, where you were showing BOMGAR, which I'm really excited about because we're a BOMGAR customer, there were two buttons on the top right that both said BOMGAR. I assume that was just filler. I guess
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and you're right. So what we've included a number of standard application launchers as part of the default layout that can easily be customized. So one of them was BOMGAR, and you know that. So indeed, we continue to have a very good relationship with BOMGAR as a partner, and we think that this is the type of application that is very appropriate for application launcher in the self-service portal. But there's only one launcher. I think it was probably a copy-paste or duplicate if that's the source of confusion, yes.
Okay. Let's see here. If a user uses link, does the operator get marked resolve ticket, or is just chat, no ticket created? So I guess go ahead.
So I'm not, okay, so I think we'll probably give an offline answer to
As
this
to
one.
that. That's fine, that's fine. Is the requested for, I think it was a particular screen, on the approval screen, was it the requested for or by on the approval screen? Will that show the full name or the contact name? I think there was an approval screen shown on the request catalog.
Again, I prefer to take that as an offline answer rather than give an answer and then
sure, no
roll
problem.
back on. Yeah.
Sure. About HP standard contact packs, example given, HTML, email solution, process designer, etc. Are they free of charge or requiring more service manager licenses?
Yeah, all content packs are free of charge.
Okay.
You mentioned some good examples. So HTML email, there is a survey integration that is free of charge. There is, when we deliver the UCMDB integration pack, it's free of charge. All process designer content that continues to be delivered and will continue to be delivered in the next version is free of charge. So they're all free of charge, that's right.
Assuming you have a support contract. Yes?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, okay. What is the difference between request and service catalog?
So request is the fulfillment behind is the module that executes the request. The catalog is the structure that hosts the offering. So once you select what you want in the catalog, then the execution triggers the request module. That's the difference. It's the articulation. So these two modules, I think what is behind this question is, are those two modules complementary to each other? Yes, they're extremely related. One is very dependent on the other, not necessarily vice versa, but they are technically separate.
Okay. Is the catalog fully built on HTML or some other language?
So I think the catalog, it depends what we're talking. The catalog itself, so there's a structure, it's a database, so it's not built on HTML. What is built on dynamic HTML, as Pat mentioned, is the UI, the rendering. It's actually, technically we're using Flex technology for SRC. We continue to work on this to evolve it to HTML5 technology, but it's not the case here.
Okay. This is we're at the top of the hour here, so I'll do one more question. And again, I appreciate HP answering all additional questions offline, and we'll post them. Is there any plan to integrate HP Asset Manager and UCMDB to make it visible in UCMD browser and ultimately in HP Service Manager's dashboard?
So I think there's potentially several questions collapsed into one. But so UCMDB browser is being increasingly integrated with the rest of the portfolio. So I think that was one part of the question. Do we have plans to have Asset Manager integrated in UCMDB? Absolutely. And so do we with it's integrated with SM, as you saw in the demo and in the slides. What was the other part of the question?
Let's see, where did it go here? Any plan to integrate HP Service Manager and UCMDB to make it visible in UCMD browser and ultimately in HPSM's dashboard? So maybe people have spent energy building their assets in HP Asset Manager. What's the integration to Service Manager?
So I think the short answer, but it's a little bit laminate, is we have the solution that we call SACAM, Service Asset and Configuration Manager, which is the way to access Asset Manager information from Service Manager using UCMDB as a conduit to asset data. So that's the way we integrate Asset Manager in Service Manager for the asset-related data. And this has been available for quite some time. We have a new version of SACAM 930, that is coming around December this year, so in this quarter, and that will have more capability, in particular around unique identifier of assets reconciled with CIs. So there's a lot more capability coming in SACAM, but the short answer to that question is yes, this is the scope of the SACAM solution to integrate Asset Manager in Service Manager using CMDB in the middle.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank you, gentlemen, Michael, Pat, and Jacques, for bringing us information about 931. I think it's you really have brought some exciting features to market here, and I'm certainly thinking seriously about the upgrade. There are a number of questions, and I do appreciate you taking those offline and answering them so we can post them on Vivid. Until next time, HP will be back with Vivid on December 12th to talk about Service Anywhere. There was a few questions. I encourage you to attend that webinar. And in the coming year, I'm looking at topics for the coming year. If you have ideas for me, please send me an email. One of the topics that I'm personally considering is what considerations would I have to move to Service Anywhere? Do I want to host this software forever myself? So with that, I thank you all, and see you next time.